Welcome to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan, Executive Director of the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie, and we are so thankful that you are here with us today. The goal of our show is to talk about the lives and experiences of women. We do talk about serious topics like gender-based violence, gender equity, women in politics, leadership, and decision-making, human trafficking. So we're really glad that you've come along with us to have these discussions and to challenge our thinking and the things that we believe to be true. Before we begin talking to our wonderful guests today, we do want to acknowledge and thank our Indigenous ancestors and people for allowing us to be in this space and to share in this land to have these conversations. We truly thank you. So without further ado, I want to welcome my wonderful guest today, Katie Taylor. Welcome, Katie, to the show. And would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers and what your role is here at the Women and Children's Shelter?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Teresa. Pleased and honored to be interviewed today. I am Katie Taylor. I'm the Development Manager for the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. I am responsible for fundraising, volunteerism, and public awareness. I'm fortunate to be the link between our agency and the community. I work closely with donors and volunteers, and speaking about violence against women and services and the supports that our agency provides. So it's a pretty great gig.
So like so many other nonprofit agencies who do great work in our community, why does this agency, the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie, need to do fundraising?
So we are partially funded we have 27 beds at our emergency shelter, and our government does partially fund for those beds. We are grateful for this contribution, but this funding does not cover the cost to maintain a large residential space. It does not cover the various services and supports that we offer. And as we continue to grow as an agency and as more women and children need to access our services and supports, the funding that we do receive does not increase. So we do continue to rely heavily on community fundraising and donations to be able to continue to provide those services and supports to the women and children.
And it's my understanding, of course, because I'm intimately aware of our agency, that while we're partially funded for 27 beds, we typically run closer to having 35 women and children in our shelter and are always over capacity. So the partial funding for 27 beds is stretched even further when you think about having 35 women and children. So whereas 70%, of our funding would have been received by the ministry, that looks more like 55 when you consider the overcapacity that we typically have, right? So it must be an incredibly difficult and challenging task for you to try and bring in the funds that are needed for the agency.
And it's interesting that you touch on that, because the day in, day out costs we incur, the heat, the hydro, the food supplies, the hygiene, meeting the daily needs of every woman and child that accesses our services is extremely costly. And that doesn't even take into consideration the old building that we, since 1991, we've been in this large residential building. And so as any home building, residential space, there are expenses that come along with owning a home, and those costs we need to be prepared at any given moment. And so, we definitely do need a lot of resources to maintain this.
I have a great deal of respect for the work that you do, because it is very challenging to reach out to the community and ask for financial support, because really it is financial support that our agency needs the most. And as I wouldn't say necessarily small nonprofit agency, we're probably mid-size. Isn't it a challenge for agencies of our size to compete, let's say, with bigger organizations for fundraising dollars?
I would say yes. where we are in Barrie, where we are in Simcoe County, and not to discredit any of the other agencies and organizations, because all of the services and supports that these NPOs provide are vital, just like our services in our agency are. So it is so important for the community to be aware of all of these causes. And really, we do encourage folks in our community to give back where they can, where they're most comfortable. And so I think we're so grateful to have our long-term supporters and donors that believe in the work that we do and continue to rally behind us. But it is extremely difficult when, especially, the past 18 months, with void of fundraising events, void of being able to be in the public eye, again, competing with all the other nonprofits that are also experiencing the lack of having their voices heard. So now that we're kind of looking out of COVID, I think the competition is there, but like I said, I do feel like when folks believe in an organization or an agency, and they see the lives that we're helping to create, women and children being free from violence and abuse, it's pretty powerful. So again, any opportunity for us to share what we do with the community is just as vital as those fundraising dollars.
So that is a wonderful lead in to really the core of our discussion today, which is about really the major fundraising event for the Women and Children's Shelter, which is Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. And so we know that it typically happens in September, but I would really love to educate our community about that event and the history of that. So, where would you like to start us off in terms of just that education piece and talking to folks about our Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event?
So I can kind of give a brief history of how the event, the concept of the event, and just kind of lead into our experience in hosting the event. And so the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes has been in existence since 2001. And the old saying, you can't really understand another person's experience until you walk a mile in their shoes, is really the whole premise of the walk. And I know that it did originally begin as more of a men's initiative, and has really translated to this worldwide movement, with men and women raising millions of dollars for local rape crisis centers, domestic violence shelters, and other sexualized violence education, prevention, and remediation programs. And so for the event as a whole, the event joins families, businesses, neighbors, and it's gathering people to raise pledges, join together, and literally walk 1 mile in women's high-heeled shoes. And just as walking in the shoes may be difficult for some folks, so is the discussion about gender relations and domestic violence. And so this is an event that, yes, is fun, but the opportunities are really to get people talking. And so for us, this is our 12th year hosting this event. We began in 2010 with our Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event. And for preventative education, it means better understanding and appreciate women's experiences, and changing perspectives, helping improve gender relationships, and decreasing the potential for violence. And for the survivors in our community, it informs them that these services are continuously available for other women who might be experiencing this. So it's really an opportunity to celebrate the women who have experienced abuse, to let women know in the community that we are here, we believe you. When you're ready, were available. And you know, at the core, it really is a fun event and an opportunity for us to all come together. And actually, at the core, it's raising the necessary funds. So at the core, it is a fundraiser. But our work can be really heavy, and so this is a little bit of a lighter opportunity for us to come together.
So I've had the pleasure of being part of, I think this will be my 5th Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event. And we are going to talk some more a little bit later in the show just about how that's going to change this year in relation to COVID. But what is your financial target for this year's fundraiser?
$50,000 is our goal for this year. Back in 2018 or 19, I believe we came pretty close. We were at about $46,000. That was our record year. As we touched on with COVID, our 2020 Walk a Mile, it was a tough year for everyone in our community. So as we appreciate that and we recognize that, we are really, really hoping for a banger year. So our goal is $50,000. I don't want to meet that goal. I want to exceed that goal because it's vital that we exceed that goal for this year. So it's not a matter of, oh, let's hit that target. It's we need to hit that target. So yeah, we're excited to hit that target.
So we're going to talk some more about exactly how, we're planning on trying to reach that target. And I agree with you. It would be wonderful to surpass that. And I know, and our community is incredibly generous and supportive. And those who know us and see the work that we do really do get behind us. And so we are going to talk some more. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what this year's event's going to look like, how you are making that work with COVID, because the word of the day is pivot. Everybody's needed to pivot how they are doing everything from providing services to fundraising. So we're going to, talk about that a lot more when we come back. And we just really, really encourage our viewers to stay with us, learn more about the Walk a Mile event and how you can become involved. And we're going to learn from the wisdom, that Katie's going to share with us about how those dollars will be used and just how much we appreciate your support. So stay with us and we will be right back. Welcome back to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. And we are having a great conversation with Katie Taylor from the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. And we're talking about the largest fundraising event for the shelter, which is Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. And if you just joined us, we were talking about, the challenges and the difficulties for fundraising for all nonprofit agencies, and that this year's event, our goal is $50,000, but of course we are really hoping to exceed that goal. So welcome back, Katie, and I want to pick up just what we were talking about. You had mentioned that previous Walk a Mile events, men and women would wear all varieties of high-heeled shoes, pumps, and they would walk the mile to get that experience of what that's like for women. And it's a celebratory event for survivors of abuse to just come out and celebrate the journey that they've been on and the healing and using their voice. We know that COVID has really thrown a wrench in what fundraising activities need to look like. So how has COVID impacted the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event for this year?
So the biggest impact would be the shoes and the significance that the shoes bring. As you said, they're so symbolic to the event itself and to the concept of literally walking a mile in their shoes. And even though in all past events that has been our symbol, the concept this year has translated to being a superhero. So there's many different reasons why we decided to to highlight this as our theme. The resilience that the women and children that we support, the resilience of our staff, and the resilience of our community, really. We believe all of these folks are superheroes. And asking and inviting our community to come together again after we've been apart, it feels like for so long, and not being able to encourage the wearing of the shoes. We're encouraging folks to dress up, still really have fun and play with this theme, and come with your cape, come with your face mask, dress up as your favorite superhero, and really it's allowing folks to stay safe and still have fun.
So where will the event be held? And again, all in relation to COVID, is it going to be indoors, outdoors? We typically met at the waterfront. So how is it going to look different this year? You did mention that we're no longer doing any kind of the heels for hygiene reasons in COVID. So what can people expect, and where will they be gathering?
So yes, in past events, we have met downtown at Heritage Park. We've donned the red shoes, and we've marched throughout downtown Barrie. This year, we will be meeting at Mapleview Community Church. That's on Mapleview Drive. It's a large, great space, being able to accommodate the amount of people that we are expecting. We of course will have our COVID safety plan in place. We've been in discussion with Simcoe Muskoka Public Health Unit, and we've really considered all the measures in place to make sure that the public that participates in this event feels comfortable and safe. And so it's also held in the same time frame. So this year it's Saturday, September 11th at the Mapleview Community Church, and it is outdoors. Everything will be outdoors. And so the walk this year will still have a lot of the elements that our traditional walk will have. And so aside from the shoes, you still can expect folks can still, go to the registration table. We'll still have the vendors, our sponsors, our generous sponsors that will be sponsoring this event, have an opportunity to showcase their companies and organizations. There will be games. There will be prizes. We're hoping to have a family fun zone, bouncy castles. There will be food and drink. So a lot of the same the traditional elements that folks would expect from our previous walk-a-miles will be in place. We're just, like you said, we're being clever with how we can accommodate these pieces.
So how will you actually raise funds? Because it sounds like a great event, and there's going to be lots of activities for adults and children, vendors, but how do you actually raise funds? Because that ultimately is what the agency needs.
You're absolutely right. And so another change to our Walk-a-Mile this year is we're inviting starting pledges at $25. And so in the past, folks have just been able to, come on down on walk day and sign their piece of paper and join, the crowds of people. And so for two reasons, we are encouraging folks to have that starting pledge of $25. It's enabling us to secure those funds, and it also allows us to do a type of contact tracing. And so the folks that will be joining us for walk day, we will have all that contact information well in advance to be able to communicate any COVID safety related communications. And also the whole, like we said, the core of this event is fundraising. So as it is fun and we get to have all the perks, The money that the pledges generate is vital, but just as vital is the sponsorships. So we've also been just so fortunate, and I know I've touched on how hard some folks, some companies and organizations in the community have been affected during COVID. And so we appreciate and we acknowledge that. But there's other folks that have prospered during this time. And so we really look to those leaders now in the community that have been able to benefit during this time. And so if there is an opportunity for you to consider to contribute, then yeah, we definitely need those sponsorship dollars as well.
So I just want to make sure that I am clear, and so it's clear for our viewers, to come to the event, you would register for $25.
Yes.
And then we hope that you will also get like pledges to raise your $25, right? And again, all of that goes towards the fundraising for the agency.
Yeah, so you can sign up as an individual, or you can sign up as a team. So it could be, Katie Taylor signing up as an individual, and I encourage my friends and family and my coworkers to support me in my initiative. Or we sign up as a neighborhood, or we sign up as a family. We sign up in honor of someone, or we sign up in memory of someone. Or we just sign up because we want to end violence against women. And the $25 is just a drop in the bucket in terms of the overall costs that it takes for the community to really make that change. So you're able to sign up online. You can visit barrieshelter.com would be the first place to go, but you will be directed to Canada Helps. The platform is all on Canada Helps. It's a really easy, just filling out the form. And you can see your team, you can set goals and send the link to your friends and family and coworkers, and really, again, create that awareness and generate some funds. It could be a really fun competition between some companies and folks in our community.
So we will definitely, put your contact information at the bottom of the screen during the show, so folks can get in contact with you if they want more information, or, they're not sure how to register. I think what would be really helpful for our community to know is if we reach that target and hopefully surpass the target, but how will those funds be used by the agency?
So as I mentioned before, some of the daily costs that we incur, the food, the hydro, the school supplies for the children. But then we have children that are celebrating birthdays, and we want to do something special for them, or the women that are with us for a little bit of longer time periods. But our programming is essential to how we support our women. And so our individual counseling, our legal advocacy, our housing transition services, group support, public education programming, all of these services that we provide them free to our clients, and they all cost us money. And so knowing that you are contributing to the Walk a Mile event knows that you are putting money right back in our agency, right back in your community, for that woman and that child to access these supports, whatever it is that they need in whatever time that they need it. It's there for them. And so this isn't the sustainable funding that you and I talk about. The monthly donors and folks that provide on a continuous basis is really what we strive for, but this is really an opportunity for us to come together and be a part of something, pretty special.
It's so great for our community to know that by participating in this event, that they have the opportunity to make a change in the life of an abused woman and her children. And we always want folks to know that every dollar makes a difference to that woman's life, and that child will have a different future. And so we do hope that our community contacts you, wants to know how to get involved, and really just wants to participate in this great event. And so, you know, Katie, where I'd like to kind of leave off today is if you had a magic ball and you were to look back at this year's Walk a Mile event and say it was a success, what would that look like? How would you describe it if it was a success?
So I think first would be exceeding that $50,000 target. I think being able to invite different folks that maybe haven't been a part of our Walk a Mile in the past, with more education and understanding in the community, and an overall decrease in the amount of women needing our shelter services would be, you know, the ultimate end goal. I mean, we always say that, you know, they put us out of a job, essentially. It would be great if I didn't have to do this, but I do. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, I think I'll just leave it there. But yeah,
it's a good, yeah. It's a really good place for us to leave off because, and I just want to reiterate my agreement with what you said. While we're very proud of the work that we do and we've been in the community, this is our 40th anniversary. We're proud of the work that we do, but we would really hope that our work would not be needed because ultimately our goal is to end violence against women. And so, you know, we cannot do that alone without the voice and support of everyone in our community. And I am really speaking to our viewers who are listening to our conversation today. Please rally behind us, rally behind women, and support your Women and Children's Shelter in Barrie. And so thank you for being with us and take care.